about having a ride? Good morning, everybody. Welcome to City Hall, welcome to Council Chambers, and welcome to a meeting of the Los Angeles City Council for today, Tuesday, February 10th, 2004. The City Council meets every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. or as close to it as we can achieve a quorum. Meetings are open to the public, and we do invite you to join us. For members of the public unable to attend council meetings, we can be viewed live on your cable station, Channel 35. We can also be viewed live via webcast from the city's homepage or heard via council phone. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Cardenas, Garcetti, Gruel, Hahn, Labange, Ledlow, Misikowski, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Smith, Villaraigosa, Weisstein, Padilla, 13 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. The council is officially in session. Members, this being Tuesday, the first meeting of the week, as is our custom, we do have a Pledge of Allegiance scheduled. Let me recognize Councilmember Villaraigosa for an introduction, as well as to present the individual who will lead us in our salute to the flag. Please rise.
Before we do, Mr. President, I'd like to introduce the Malton School Center for the Deaf, who are here with us, and the two individuals who are going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance are going to do it in sign language, and they're Ricky and Rafael. Ricky and Rafael.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one.
Thank you very much. That was
President, for those of you who don't know, the Malton School Center for the Deaf provide interns. I have two of them, Guadalupe Lopez and Brian Holland, one here in City Hall and the other in my Boyle Heights office. So those of you who might be interested in some interns should know that these young people are doing a phenomenal job in our office and will do a phenomenal job for you as well.
Thank you, Mr. Villaraigosa. That certainly was special. Madam Clerk, first order of business, please.
Approval of the minutes.
Mr. Villaraigosa moves and Mr. Smith seconds.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Mr. Parks moves and Mr. Garcetti seconds.
On the, this is the time for comments from the public on items not on council's agenda.
This is general public comment for today's meeting, and I do not have requests from members of the public to address the council on non-agenda items. Public comment for today's meeting is closed. Next item, please.
Items for which public hearings have been held, items 1 through 13. And I understand Ms. Hahn wants to continue item number 1 for 1 week.
Ms. Hahn moves a continuance on item number 1 for 1 week. That would be February 17th. Seeing no objection, item 1 is continued. We have items 2 through 13 remaining before us, colleagues. Public hearings have been held on these items. A motion from the floor would be required to reopen the public hearings. Seeing no such requests, do we have any requests for specials? Ms. Misikowski.
Item 9.
Item 9, call special by Ms. Misikowski. Any other specials? Items 2 through 13. Ms. Hahn.
Item 10.
Item 10, call special by Ms. Hahn. Any other specials? Seeing none, on the balance of the items, Madam Clerk, please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Those are approved. Next item, please.
Items for which public hearings have not been held, items 14 through 43. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Without objection, items 14 through 43 shall be considered by the City Council today. We do have speaker cards on items 27 and 28. We'll call those matters special. On the balance of the items, I do not have requests from members of the public to address the council. Those public hearings shall be opened and closed. Any other requests for specials, members? Mr. Garcetti. 26, call special by Mr. Garcetti. Any other specials? Mr. Weiss.
27.
27 has been called special for speaker cards. 28 has also been called special. Items 14 through 43, any other specials? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Those are approved. Next item, please.
Next item, Mr. President, item number 44, I believe there's a request to continue that matter for one day, which would be February 11th.
Members request to continue item 44 without objection, so ordered. Next item.
On the supplemental agenda, item number 45 is an item for which public hearing has not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration, and this matter does require 2 votes, one to assert jurisdiction and the other to refer it to committee.
Okay, members, without objection, item 45 is before us today. We do not have speaker cards on item 45. Public hearings are satisfied. Members wishing to call 45 special. If not, let's open the roll on item 45. The first vote is to assert jurisdiction. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Okay, jurisdiction is asserted. And on the motion to refer this matter to committee, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Okay. Next item, please.
Item number 46 is a closed session item, and I believe there are cards from the public on that matter. Do you wish to hear the public comment at this time?
We'll hear public comment on item 46 prior to going into closed session. Next item, please.
Going back to the items called special, item number 9 was called special by Councilmember Ms. Sikowski.
Before going to item number 9, Mr. Dudlow?
Mr. President, I requested that we take 28 out of order.
Okay. Members, is there any objection to taking item 28 out of order? We do have quite a few speakers here on item 28. If there's no objection, then, Madam Clerk, let's proceed to item 28. And Mr. Ludlow, did you wish to offer any opening remarks before going to the speaker cards?
Yeah, I think I'd like to go to the public comments first, if we
Okay.
could.
Then this will be public comment for item number 28. I understand we have a few spokespeople on behalf of a larger group. Let me read the 4 names that were given to me. Conrad Starr, Woodrow Coleman, Richard Bergendahl, and Esperanza Martinez.
Are those the right?
No?
If I could, and I appreciate it, Mr. President, if you could bear for one moment. I know that we have a representative here from the Bus Riders Union, and I think what they've done as a courtesy to us today, which we appreciate, is there were originally about almost 20 cards submitted, and I think they've narrowed it down to 4 speakers.
Okay.
And so, Mr. President, if it's okay, I'd like to allow them just to bring them up as they see
Okay.
fit. Is that
If they
acceptable?
would come forward and identify
Great.
themselves, please.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Cynthia Rojas, and what I actually wanted to do was give a presentation of a few minutes. 2 speakers have ceded their time to me so that I can just give you a background information on what the resolution is about. And then 4 other members of the Bus Riders Union wanted to give brief comments, if that's
Go ahead.
all right. So before you, you have a hard copy of a PowerPoint presentation titled Summary of Special Masters January 2004 Court Order. And this is the background for the resolution under item 28. Essentially, the overview of the court order, as you can see on page 1, is the expansion of bus service with 145 buses and 370,000 additional in-service hours into peak hour service. In addition to that, the special master ordered an accelerated multi-year procurement plan to both match this expansion and to increase and maintain the reliability of the fleet. So in addition to the 145 buses to expand the fleet, the order is for 381 buses to replace overage buses over the next 3 years. This in turn will lead to fewer breakdowns, increased bus reliability, and after the service is added, the special master ordered a continued evaluation of overcrowding and adding of service as necessary. The next page goes into the history of the load factor as a standard. Essentially, it was agreed upon during mediation between the Bus Riders Union and the MTA when we could not agree on a set number of expansion buses. The next page goes into what were MTA's obligations. So essentially, the 1.35 load factor target represents no more than 15 people standing on a bus in any 20-minute period, the 1.25 no more than 11 people standing, and the 1.20 is no more than 8 people standing. It's basically a ratio between people standing and people sitting on a 40-seat bus. And the last deadline was, as you can see, in June 2002, and continuing thereafter, these standards are to be met. If you turn to the next page, titled MTA Noncompliance, essentially MTA has not complied with these load factor standards in 70-plus lines. Using data from July 2003 to September 2003, 72 bus lines were in violation of the 1.2 load factor. And if you go all the way down, you'll see that 1.35 load factor was not met on 58 lines. 1.7 load factor was not met on 14 bus lines. Now, that's essentially 28 people standing on a 40-seat bus. And this was not being met this was actually way over the 1.2 as of September 2003. The next page is essentially an exhibit that both the MTA and the Bus Riders Union signed under the Joint Working Group, which is a body that was created in the consent decree to oversee consent decree implementation. And as you can see there, both organizations agreed that MTA was not meeting the 1.20 load factor target on 72 lines. That represents 92% of the bus lines that are monitored under the consent decree. The next page shows what then both parties, again, agreed was needed to remedy these violations. Essentially, 185 expansion buses and 425,500 expansion service hours added to peak hour service. And again, that was submitted to Special Master Bliss and signed by both parties. Now, the 381 buses, again, are to improve the reliability of the bus fleet. If buses go over age, they are much more prone to breakdowns and much less reliable. Special Master Bliss understands this, MTA understands this, and this is actually just a reiteration of their past policy. So 381 buses is what he ordered to replace old buses. The 145, again, are to increase service above and beyond what is already existing on peak hour service, and the 370,000 are the concrete in-service hours. And there you can see a quote from Special Master Donald Bliss reiterating that the first priority of the MTA should be the implementation of the consent decree and the upkeep of the bus service. So essentially, the third to last page shows where Special Master Bliss ordered an accelerated procurement plan for these 526 buses in total, the 145 for expansion and 381 for replacement, and a continued evaluation once this service is added to make sure that the overcrowding is kept within the consent decree overcrowding standards.
Ma'am, if I can ask you to conclude, please.
Yes, I'm about to wrap up. The last two pages show where the Special Master reiterates MTA needing to make the bus service a priority, even after the consent decree expires in FY 2007, excuse me. He reiterates the necessity to plan for the long term so that the improvements last beyond the life of the consent decree.
Thank you very much. That was a 5-minute presentation that we afforded the Bus Riders Union representative. I know we have other speakers as well. If you would please identify yourself as you come to the podium and limit your remarks to 1 minute, please, each.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Patrice Cullors. I am a Bus Riders Union member and a community college student. Today, I just want to talk. I live in the San Fernando Valley, Canoga Park area, and I want to talk specifically around the conditions that Valley bus riders face daily. I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, and my whole family is transit dependent. There's 6 of us, my mother being the main one that works in the household. She's a single mother. And an example of what the Valley residents have to face is my mother works nights, and usually she has to show up an hour early to work just to get to work on time, and then she has to sleep at her job in order and wait for the bus at 6 a.m. in the morning till the bus runs at 6 a.m. in the morning to get back home. The Special Master's Court Order of the 526 buses, 145 expansion buses, and 381 replacement buses, with the additional 370,000 service hour, is a potential and first phase remedy to the obstacles of bus riders, poor people, and people of color in Los Angeles. City Council Member Smith, you are the representative of Canoga Park, and today you have an opportunity to vote for the civil rights of bus riders. So I really appreciate your time, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Yes, my name is Woodrow Coleman. I'm a member of the Bus Riders Union. I'd like to thank the City Council for taking the opportunity to hear our problem, and I want to especially thank my City Councilman Eric Garcetti, because I know he'll do the right thing. We signed an agreement with the MTA back in 1996, and I didn't think today we would still be trying to fight the MTA. The MTA signed an agreement to make buses top priority. They have lived up to that agreement. Also, I want to say to the City Council, when you do this agreement, when you clean up the buses, they clean through buses on the streets, that helps the whole community because we all breathe the same air. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good morning. My name is Carla Gonzalez, and first I want to thank Councilman Villaraigosa and Ludlow for bringing this resolution up to the City Council. I'm just going to read. Come to a city where the majority of the people are Black and Latino working class. I know it sounds like any city in Los Angeles, but I'm talking about Pacoima in the San Fernando Valley. Hello, my name is Carla Gonzalez, a 20-year-old Latina raised in the heart of Little Mexico of the San Fernando Valley. The MTA has just appealed for the new court order for 526 new buses. Now I ask you what it means for your communities, but let me tell you what it means for mine. It means students waiting for a longer time to get to San Fernando High School and Pacoima Middle School. It means pregnant mothers missing their appointments for their unborn children. And it means parents and disappointed children waiting for overcrowded buses that keep passing them on. Not only all this, but it also means that there is an increasing asthma and cancer rates in the city of LA and in Pacoima in particular. The city of Pacoima is surrounded by the 118, the 5, the 210, and thousands of cars that run around daily. A viable transportation system is what we need. I want to ask the City Council to pass this resolution, but in particularly Councilman Alex Padilla to pass the resolution. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Ms. Kim requests more time as translation is needed.
Sure.
여러분 안녕하세요. 제 이름은 희복 김입니다. 저는 이 보수 문제에 심각하기 때문에 이 시간에 나왔습니다.
Hello, my name is Hipok Kim. I'm here to talk about the problems that bus riders face on a daily basis.
이 버스를 타는 사람들은 거의 다 서민들이고 학생들, 노인들이 타기 때문에 이 문제가 굉장히 많은데 버스를 오래 기다리다 보면은 지치고 또 그다음에 올라타면은 자리가 없어요. 우린 다 서서 갑니다. 그러면 버스 라이더스가 버스 드라이버가 뒤로 가라 이러다 보면 넘어지기도 하고 굉장히 문제가 많아요.
There are a lot of problems riding the bus. The bus riders comprise seniors, students, working people, people who work on from day to day, and we have to wait a long time for the buses, and when they come, they're completely crowded. The bus drivers are always telling us to move back, and people, it's just too crowded, and it causes lots of problems.
그러면 문제가 많은데 우리는 버스를 타면 너무너무 힘들어요. 우리는 물건이 아닙니다. 절대로. 짐짝같이 실려져 있는데 그러다 보면 너무 지치고 그 안에서는 또 싸움도 시작이 돼요. 몸을 다치면은 돈 타치 하고 이게 싸움들이 나요. 그럼 분위기가 나빠지고 이 원인이 어디에 있느냐? MTA에서 우리가 요구하는 BR에서 요구하는 버스를 주지 않기 때문에 이런 문제가 납니다.
We're treated like luggage when we're riding the buses. We're no longer human. We're being pushed into these small spaces. We're fighting amongst each other. And what is the reason? It's because the MTA is not keeping the promises of the consent decree.
우리가 요구하는 것을 여기서 다 들어주지 않고 또 판사님이 버스 그 시간을 느리고 또 버스 깨끗한 버스를 주고 이렇게 하라는데 이걸 지키질 않아요. 약속을 지키지 않기 때문에 이런 결과가 나오는데 우리는 굉장히 시급합니다. 버스 문제가. 버스 타는 사람은 많이 늘어요. 버스는 한정돼 있고 타는 사람은 나날이 늘어가고 심각한 문제. MTA에서 이 문제를 빨리 해결해 주지 않으면 아주 큰 문제가 일어날 것입니다.
The special master has ordered improvements in bus services, additional buses in the lines, and the MTA has not complied with them. And what we need are new buses. We need for the MTA to comply with what the court order has said.
다시 한번 말씀드리는데요. 이 버스 문제는 굉장히 심각하니까 제 시간에 잘 안 하고 초만원 되고 오래 기다리고 이렇기 때문에 MTA에서 빨리 이 문제를 해결해 주시기를 저희들은 다시 한번 부탁드립니다.
We urge for the passage of this resolution in order to alleviate the problems that we as bus riders face.
법원에서 판사님이 빨리 주라고 했는데 약속을 좀 지켜주세요. 부탁합니다. 감사합니다.
We urge you to keep the MTA accountable to its promises. Thank you very much.
Okay, if I can ask for just one or two more speakers, please, on behalf of the group.
My name is Richard Birkendahl. I do ride the bus at night. I'm one of about 40,000 security guards in Southern California, and most of us use the bus. You can see all the different color uniforms anytime you get on. About the amount of service, it's not surprising. It's not unusual for a bus to pass you by at 2 or 3 in the morning and leave you standing there for another hour, since the buses come by once an hour at that time. Guards and a lot of night workers were there 24/7, and there needs to be enough service at night so you're not standing on the street for hours on end and in a lot of danger. I would hope that the council would vote for the resolution to expand the service, and I appreciate you listening. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Esperanza Martinez, and I'm here representing members of the Los Angeles Metropolitan Alliance and Agenda in South Los Angeles, who also are in support of the resolution put forth by Mr. Villaraigosa and Mr. Ludlow. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Benny Madera. I'm a teacher in the Los Angeles Unified School District. I'm also a member of the Coalition for Educational Justice, where we have membership of hundreds of parents, students, and teachers from throughout the city of Los Angeles, and we support this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Madera, if I can ask you to fill out a speaker card, please, for the record. And if that's it for public comment, what I'll do is, I need you to turn that in. What I'll do is I'll read the names of the other individuals who submitted speaker cards, just so they know we acknowledge them, and their cards will be added as part of the file. Conrad Starr, Manuel Criollo, Tammy Liu, Layla Wellborn, Deborah Oroz, Rafael Navar, Elena Astilleros, Shepard Pettit, Robert Taylor, Jade Ross, Tanya Bernard, Jason David, Esperanza Martinez, and Rosa Ayala. Thank you for being here. Mr. Ludlow.
Thank you, Mr. President, and colleagues. Thank you for allowing representatives of the community to come in and speak to us this morning. As you know, and from the testimony that you heard this morning, the MTA and the Labor Strategy Center, the Bus Riders Union, entered into a federal consent decree in 1996. And the main reason for this consent decree was to reduce overcrowding on the buses of Los Angeles. And it's true, there's no doubt, and I think we should also state an appreciation for the comments that have been made in giving the MTA credit for some of the work that they have done to not only improve bus service in LA, but to improve the cleanliness of the buses and other steps that they have made. However, the heart of this resolution today, sponsored by myself, Council members Villaraigosa and Reyes, is to really make a statement, colleagues. We're the largest city in the state of California, second largest city in the nation, and clearly the largest city that is under the auspices of the MTA's bus service area. It is unconscionable that we don't take a stand to say to the MTA that it is time to end the continual litigation that is wasting taxpayers' dollars. They have appealed this decision. They have appealed this federal consent decree 6 times since 1996. And on the motion that went through last week, they are appealing it again. The special master made it very, very clear, and I want to read this. Further economic hardship should not be imposed on the transit dependent. He wrote, during times of severe fiscal constraints, it is especially critical that the MTA fulfill its consent decree mandates and ensure that the bus riders who are dependent on public transit for access to employment, education, health care, and other activities are not the victim of these budget cuts. We agree with the special master, and I just wanted to say, colleagues, 80% of the bus riders who use the MTA come from our districts. They come from the city of Los Angeles. And it is a great majority of these bus riders who are working class, low-income residents, who are 100% dependent on the MTA bus service. I ask that we join Mayor James Hahn, board members Villaraigosa, and I want to thank Tom LaBonge for his leadership on this issue as well, in stepping up and going on record and saying, MTA, stop appealing this decision. We also have a letter here from Congresswoman Maxine Waters appealing to us to support this motion today, indicating that it's important and a long overdue step in improving the expansion of the bus system. I urge you to move forward to quickly and fully implement it. This is from one of our esteemed colleagues from the United States Congress, Maxine Waters. Colleagues, I urge an aye vote on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Villaraigosa.
I want to thank Council Member Ludlow for his leadership on this issue and all the members of the Metropolitan Transit Authority Board who represent the city of Los Angeles. I dare say, members, if there was an issue for us to be involved in this, the city with the most congestion than any big city in the country, a city where buses are an absolute necessity for many people. We have the most overcrowded bus system in the nation, or at the top when this lawsuit was first filed. I was a member of the MTA board back then, and I agreed as a board member to be a witness in the lawsuit. And I did at the time because it was the most overcrowded bus system in the nation, as I said. I did because I understood that what we were doing in this city and in this region is putting money in programs for transportation that impacted very few people and not putting the money where it was most needed, and that was the bus system. We know that over the last decade we've lost bus riders and not increased in the way that we could have because we haven't invested in the bus system. It took a lawsuit that the MTA lost for us to begin to make those changes. The idea that the MTA board would now appeal this lawsuit once again is to me unacceptable. We have to stand for the proposition that 80% of these bus drivers, as Councilmember Ludlow said, live in the city of Los Angeles, work in the city of Los Angeles. We know in that strike, one of the reasons why it was important for us to resolve that strike is because the people here had no other alternative. They can't get in a car. They don't have a train next door. They have a bus system, and that bus system is the key to our transportation system. I can tell you, as the chair of transportation here in the city, I've had an opportunity in these 6 months to look at this issue as a member of the MTA board as well, and this city needs to go on record opposing the MTA effort to appeal this lawsuit. We should stand together speak up for the bus riders and for the idea that the bus system is key to moving people in Los Angeles.
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I will probably be the lone vote against this resolution today, but I think we have to understand, first of all, that 8 years ago when we entered the consent decree on this, the MTA did what it was asked to. It bought more buses. It lowered the load on the factor. It made their buses cleaner. They did a good job of getting us where we should be. Then the special master came back and said, well, I want more. The bus riders union said, I want more. The problem is, for 8 years, we've been tying our hands economically at MTA. MTA cannot financially bear this burden any longer, and we need to get out of it. We've focused for 8 years now on getting more buses, building a better system. We've been doing that at MTA, and they're to be commended for that. What we really need to do is give the MTA the ability to decide how many buses they need, when and where, and also what other transportation systems are needed. We've taken away money from Rapid Rails. We've taken away money from all those systems we're trying to build out. We've impaired our ability to build out a combined system, which is not just bus riders. It is Rapid Rail. It is rapid bus systems as well. We are tying our hands by buying buses continuously, and we need to break that cycle. And I think the appeal is warranted. I think the appeal is necessary, and if they lose at that appeal, then fine, go forward and buy those 145 buses. But they need the ability, as public policy makers, MTA and staff need the ability to decide where to spend the money to meet the greatest need. And with the consent decree, they have lost that ability to decide what's most important and move money where it's needed on a yearly basis. For 8 years, we've been tied up buying buses. It's time to move on. And I'd probably be the lone vote in this, but I think those things have to be said. I agree with MTA with what they've done at the board. We need to file the appeal on this, and then if we lose in court, then go back and buy those buses.
Mr. Ludlow.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Mr. Smith, I appreciate the sentiments that you raise, and in fact, I should say that many members of the board have felt that way. I think the compelling issue here is that it's been appealed 6 times, and 6 times it's been denied. And I think what's happening at the federal level is people are saying enough is enough is enough is enough. A judge has said 6 times, do the right thing, and we keep going back. I want to just ask if Brian Williams, representing Mayor Hahn, could step forward and just make a comment here on behalf of another great member of the Board of Directors, Mayor Hahn.
Thank you, Mr. Ludlow. Members of the council, on behalf of the mayor, I'm happy to be here today to give the mayor's support to the resolution as it is devised today. Time and time again, the mayor has said, do not appeal the special master's order, do not appeal the consent decree. And time again, the MTA has gone forward to appeal the consent decree only to lose, spending additional dollars that could have been used for additional transit services. The bus riders have been through enough. They've been through a more than month-long strike. They've been through a strike several years ago. They continue to have overcrowded buses along very important corridors, and as the councilman mentioned earlier today, 80% of the ridership on the MTA bus lines live within the city of Los Angeles. The mayor wholeheartedly supports this motion, and again, he asks that the MTA go forward with no further appeals and simply buy the buses like the special master ordered. Thank you.
Mr. Zine. Mr. Zine.
President, I oftentimes, as I commute on the roadways of Los Angeles at some of our bus stops, see a lot of people waiting for a bus. And during the commuter hours, I oftentimes see buses jammed to capacity, people standing in the aisles, and the empathy goes for those people. Now that's in ideal conditions, but then when you complicate it with the rain, the wind, the cold, the heat, it makes it more uncomfortable. And we need a public transit system in this city for the people of this city, for whatever reason. If they can't afford a car, if they choose not to use a car, to provide that transportation for them. I know in the San Fernando Valley we are currently building a busway from the western San Fernando Valley to North Hollywood, and hopefully people will utilize that to relieve congestion on the roadways. But the people who are transit dependent in this city who use public transportation help free up the roadways, that are also congested. So I support, and I don't think we should spend more money on challenging. I think we should spend money on purchasing the transportation for the people who need that transportation. And I can remember when we were going to do a subway to the valley and that was scrapped. We were going to do a light rail to the valley and that was scrapped. And we keep on scrapping projects, and the people who are packed in the buses keep packing tighter and tighter and tighter. So we need to bring relief to that area. I support this. I congratulate Councilmember Ludlow and acknowledge the mayor for coming forward, supporting this project. Quit challenging, and let's bring transportation back so you folks who are transit dependent, who choose to ride those buses, public transportation, can do it in a safe, smooth, and comfortable fashion. Thank you.
Mr. Weiss.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was moved by what you said, Mr. Zine, to speak and say I couldn't agree more. I think you did a very nice job there, and I want to thank Mr. Ludlow and Mr. Villaraigosa for their votes on the MTA board, and indeed I understand that all of the LA members on the MTA board voted the way you guys did. Mr. Labange as well voted the way you guys did, a member of the MTA board. Thank you for that, Mr. Labange. The one thing that I've started to notice around here, I'll say to all three of you, is this is a pattern. I mean, I've seen it in the environmental area where these agencies want to keep suing and participating in lawsuits that are just dragging all of us down in this community. And it's our job as policymakers to let the folks know who want to continue with the lawsuit on the transit area, the lawsuit in the environmental area, that they're not the policymakers. We were democratically elected by the people, and we will make the decisions about which lawsuits go forward and which ones do not. It's an absolute crying shame. You guys are doing absolutely the right thing by watchdogging and by bringing it here and making sure that we speak out here as well. The people are ultimately in charge of which lawsuits proceed, not the bureaucrats, and I couldn't be prouder to stand with all three of the representatives from the MTA who are on this council in supporting this measure.
Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Weiss, for those words. I'd like to also praise Mr. Villaraigosa and Mr. Ludlow for their leadership. Mr. Reyes, who's not here today, but I know who is also the seconder of this motion as well. And I want to thank Tom Labange for his vote on the MTA as well. You know, I was looking at a study last night that showed a city in Europe that made all the public transit free for a period of time to see how it increased ridership. And ridership increased 800%. And when we look at the idea of public transportation as a problem, is its routes or rail versus buses, we forget that a lot of this comes down to pure dollars and cents. We are not in a position today to open up the MTA to be absolutely free, but it underscores, I think, what we should be driving towards, which is the idea that this is a right, and not only a right, but a necessity in a city that is increasingly polluted. We took that crown back from Houston last year, in a city in which we wonder why jobs and housing have an imbalance and people have to commute so far to go to work. And also, when we look at those who are activists in the Bus Riders Union, SEIU, I try to ride the bus whenever I can. I took the bus about a week ago on the rapid buses along Wilshire Boulevard, and this was about at 9 o'clock at night, and you know, we were packed like sardines in there, and I know that's the experience of Angelinos every single night, every single day. And this should be a no-brainer. You have my full support, of course. I want to thank the Bus Riders Union who's come and met with me in my office a couple times. But we should also push that envelope further. If we are going to revolutionize what we have in this city in terms of the approach that we have, finally admitting that we live in a city, not kind of an extended suburb, we have to change the way that we do planning and transportation in this city. We have to admit that this city does indeed have options that don't include cars, but only if they have the political support of leadership, and you have mine today. Thank you.
MTA board member, Mr. Labange.
Well, thank you very much, and everything has been said, but I just want to say it again since it's important. I think the big key in Los Angeles is we as board members realize in the core of the region, whether it's from Montebello through to West Hollywood, whether it's from South Los Angeles through to the East San Fernando Valley, a lot of people have to ride buses. And unless we make a commitment to build those systems with buses, and I truly believe in articulating them to connect with rail and with light rail, it integrates. Mr. Garcetti spoke of European systems, and there's an integration with our systems that are so important. And I think if we follow this commitment, this is why I voted the way I voted the other day at the MTA board, is that we should serve this commitment out and then move forward. If we try not to serve this commitment, we're backing away from a responsibility that we have taken. I don't agree with absolutely everything the bus rider union says, but I agree with their passion towards people and people who we see as we move about the city to place, stuck in buses, stuck in traffic, and the challenges they have. So I think this is a real important statement that we must make, but we should, not just in this, but in every one of our actions in the future, look to ways to help the flow of the people in the center part of the region. All of Southgate, all of the 5 cities in Southeast LA County, all the challenge they have, sometimes it's amazing to see how packed these buses are. But we have to think smarter. And I think we can think smarter if we proceed with this agreement that has been settled for the settlement, and then implement it and get more buses and make sure they connect. I was walking over to the Chamber of Commerce. The 16 bus goes north on Bixel. It comes from East Los Angeles. It goes over the 16, goes to Hill Street, goes south on Hill, the 5th, goes 5th to Bixel. I said to the driver who opened the door, I said, why don't you go straight through the 3rd Street Tunnel? It'd be faster. Think how much time people lose who have to ride home from the Westlake District of Los Angeles from the east side because they have this loop. He liked that idea. He said, that's a good idea. Not just this, but other things to make people move around the city and make it easier for them to move around can be done and can be accomplished. So that's why I stand to support this. That's why I support it over at the MTA board. I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Mr. Cardenas.
I agree with what much has been said today, and I also appreciate Greg Smith's comments about the MTA having to be responsible. But that's where my perspective, I disagree with you on that. When we were in the legislature, those of us who were there, we fed the MTA many opportunities. We have encouraged them. We helped them. We heard their cries of not having enough funding. And for example, when I was the budget chairman, we found a way to get over $500 million just into the San Fernando Valley alone. But guess who's responsible for managing that money? The MTA. And we have yet to see 90% of those projects actually come to fruition or even get off the mark. So the MTA does have a lot to improve. They do have a lot of responsibilities. But at this moment in time, it is the courts who are telling the MTA that they are not providing core basic services that are adequate to the people who deserve to have public transportation. I was very fortunate to go study abroad one year, and I actually, for the first time in my life, regularly boarded a bus. It's sad that we would have to consider enjoying a bus ride, having to go halfway around the world to enjoy a bus ride and make it part of our everyday requirements to get to and from where we want to go. It's unfortunate that the second largest city in the country can honestly say that we do not have adequate public transportation by any means. Some of us just came back from China. We were able to ride a maglev train, something that was designed in Germany, actually put into place in full operation, not in full operation, but in operation, actually taking people to and from their destination, going 430 kilometers an hour. To me, that sounds exciting. It's unfortunate that a country like ours, that probably is the most innovative and probably as creative as can be, doesn't pay attention to the core responsibilities of making sure that our constituents who need public services the most don't get that. And to me, that's what the courts are saying when they deny over and over and over to the MTA. You have to get down to the bottom of providing services. You cannot deny the opportunity and responsibility to purchase the appropriate buses. You have to increase the amount of service that you're providing to your constituents. That's what the courts have told MTA over and over and over. It's about time they get the message and start to realize that they need to put their priorities in the right place, and that's what I think the message of this council is today, that the MTA needs to serve its entire constituency, the number one constituency, or the constituents of the city of Los Angeles, and I think it would be wrong should we not speak on this issue. So thank you very much, Martin Ludlow and the members of the NTA of this body, for putting this motion before us so that we can say and do the right thing. Thank you.
Mr. Ludlow to close.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, thank you for the discussion today. I just wanted to close with this in terms of putting it in context. If you could imagine 1964 Voting Rights Act, the whole concept of public accommodation and the obligation of this greatest country on this planet to accommodate and provide services for the poor and the indigent. Imagine if each time the Federal Voting Rights Act or the Civil Rights Act came before a judge and the judge ordered 6 times to implement the Voting Rights Act or to implement the Civil Rights Act. We're celebrating the 50th anniversary this year of Brown versus Board of Education. Imagine if after the federal decision on the Brown versus Board of Education that 6 times people went in and demanded that that decision be upheld. But 6 times the federal government and the agencies responsible at the local school district levels continued to block. That's the context that I want to leave us with today, colleagues, because this is absolutely, fundamentally at the heart of every civil rights gain this country has ever made, and I think it's time that we stand up as the second biggest city in the nation, do the right thing, vote yes on this. MTA, stop messing around, support the people who need the buses the most. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk. Madam Clerk, please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes,
That
1
is
no.
approved. Mr. Smith?
Yes. Mr. President,
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much.
it is obvious the intent of this body is very clear, and I wish to change my vote to yes to make it unanimous so it doesn't change the vote.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Smith. We'll have the clerk make that change. Have the record reflect Mr. Smith as an aye vote. Next item, please.
Item number 9 was called special by Councilmember Miskowski.
Ms. Misikowski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, this is an issue that deals with the Los Angeles World Airports and a continuation or an amendment of a contract, or actually an amended and reinstated contract for legal counsel at LA World Airports. And this had come before Commerce Committee, and Commerce had some issues with it, and I think we have had some written explanation of some of those issues that were raised. But my concern was just to clarify that in my support of this action today, that there had been, before this action was brought forward, some problems, as I saw them, related to outside counsel and the city attorney and advice that was being given to LAWA, or advice that was being made available to all of us in the city about LAWA, the master plan, the EIR. And what I had encountered was previously some information that was being handled by our outside counsel, and not necessarily Mr. Hall from Aiken Gump. We have 2 legal firms who have a contract with the city attorney to advise and help advise the city attorney dealing with all the airport issues, and particularly the airport issues as they relate to the master plan. We have Mr. Hall and his firm here in Los Angeles, and we have another firm in Washington, D.C. And the difficulty for me is that as I was trying to get information, get advice, get status reports as to what kind of legal counsel, legal advice was being given, and particularly when I was aware that some of that legal advice, legal thought, was being put forward that I perceived could have foreclosed options available to us as the council or the Board of Airport Commission in their consideration of a master plan and environmental impact report, I grew very concerned, because I did not think that as a member of this body, as a member of the city who will ultimately be voting on this, that information should be provided legally that I did not have access to. As a consequence, I have raised that question with the city attorney. I actually had a meeting in the city attorney's office with Mr. Delgadillo on Friday, and he made very, very clear to both the airport council who was there, his heads of his administration, that all information, all legal information, status regarding that, is to be made available to every member of this council if we so choose, to discussions and participation with members of this council if we so choose. Not that we will dictate to our attorneys, far from it, but at least we have access and can participate in those discussions and the debate and be made aware of what is forthcoming. I think that has now been clarified. The city attorney's made it abundantly clear. I chatted with Mr. Hall, who is here representing Aiken Gump as the outside counsel in town. Mr. Ray Algunas is at the table representing the city attorney. He's part of the city attorney contingent assigned to the airport. And Patty Tubert and Mr. Delgadillo said that they will make that absolutely and abundantly clear also to Kay Schuler, which is our law firm in Washington, D.C. And when I go back to D.C., as many of us will, early next month for the League of Cities, I will be meeting with that firm as well. So I believe at this point that those issues have been clarified. Now let me ask Mr. Algunas and Mr. Hall if they have any problems with that or any different understanding than that I've just conveyed.
I work for the city attorney, Mr. Delgadillo, and I do what he tells me to do.
All right.
Mr. Hall? I also agree with what you just said, and we were chatting about it earlier, and there were obviously some misunderstandings that I think we now have clarified.
I appreciate it, and members, then let me make it clear, there were misunderstandings. There were, I can tell you that there was an opinion that was being promulgated as a draft opinion by one of our outside counsel firms, that when it came to the city attorney felt so strongly about that draft opinion that the word was that if that draft opinion came out from another firm in the name of the city attorney was going to write a contrary opinion. That's what I am dealing with as I deal with the airport and trying to get a handle on this. And members, all that I am trying to ensure is that we get the best framework from which the Board of Airport Commissioners and the City Council will be able to consider and look at all the alternatives put forward, environmentally discussed, environmentally analyzed in this EIR as we come forward this spring and this summer in making decisions collectively on what is the best for us in the future of Los Angeles World Airports. As there might have been counter actions going to that or precluding actions that were being done literally without our knowledge and without our availability to participate in that, I wanted to make sure that that was stopped and that we had those options, that legal advice, that ability for all decision makers in this process to make their best choice and best selections and best decisions with the information that's brought to us. I think we've now clarified it, and you might see an awful lot of legal opinions coming out in the near future related to that, but at least we now have a place at the table to get that information, to participate in that discussion, so that when it's brought forward to us, we can all vote in an as lightened and legally sound a framework as possible.
Mr. Weiss. Mr. Weiss.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Ms. Misikowski for the statement she just made and for working so hard last week in your meeting with the city attorney to make sure that we could have this clarification. Maybe I don't think it really was unclear beforehand, but just so that we could have this state of play made evident to all the parties, because it is critically important for this council when it considers this public policy question, the airport, or any other public policy question. If there are folks who are working, and we'll just pick on lawyers for a second, if there are lawyers working for the city in an official capacity, this council needs to have full and complete access to those lawyers and to their thought process. And I just want to ask the gentleman at the table, Mr. Hall, because he's very experienced in this matter, and the gentleman from the city attorney's office, if I have a correct understanding, broadening it from this particular matter to the notion that if the city is paying for an outside attorney to do legal work on behalf of the city, that that's something which the council, as well as any other elected official, but particularly the council, ought to have access to.
The outside counsel works for the city attorney to assist the city attorney, so everything is going through the city attorney's office. And my understanding is Ms. Miskowski has met with Mr. Delgadillo, and he has made a commitment to provide counsel with that information.
And so if there are other attorneys who are being paid from an airport account or a DWP account to work on behalf of the city of Los Angeles, those are attorneys to whom the city council should have full, complete, and unfettered access. Is that correct?
It's my understanding that that is the commitment Mr. Delgadillo's made through the statement of Ms. Miskowski.
And Mr. Hall, based on you predate me in this stuff, is that your understanding of the way this business works as well?
Well, I'm not an expert in the city charter, and I don't advise about the city charter and how all that works, but if Mr. Delgadillo and Councilwoman Mrs. Kowski have reached that mutual understanding, and as Mr. Algunas just said, that he agrees with that understanding, I have no problem with that understanding.
Fair enough. Okay, thank you all. Thank you, Ms. Miskowski.
Mr. Cardenas.
This is a particular item that was in the Commerce Committee, and I asked some questions that I think are relevant on the minority women, minority business goals that we ask of all vendors who do business with the city or proprietary departments to give us an estimation and a goal, and basically request that they have an effort to outreach and work with those kinds of businesses. And this is a particular case where in committee the issue before us was the extension of their contract beyond the initial $2 million to an additional $700,000. And what we found in committee was because of, I guess, the outreach strategy that was used by this firm, they inadvertently weren't able to meet their goal. So much so that their goal was closer to zero minority and women participation on their first $2 million. And I personally was not pleased with their answer that they were on the extension of the $700,000, which on the merits of the work required, I think that it does merit and require us to extend this contract. But only were they willing to extend their want and need to a goal of 20% or so on the remaining $700,000, not willing to make up any ground or any effort to show a stronger effort to make up some of that opportunity for some other organizations. So I personally was disappointed with that. But the reason why I bring this up to you, colleagues, is because you weren't privy to being in that committee. But I'm just stating that this is the issue, and this is the particular case that has brought it to my attention, that I'm personally going to make sure that we strengthen those goals, that we cross-reference with these organizations, whether it be an engineering firm, a law firm, or what have you, to make sure that they're actually following through on their intent. And I must say that, and I'm using my words carefully, that they follow through with their intent, because in no way can we enforce that because of the requirements or lack thereof when it comes to affirmative action and things of that nature. This has nothing to do with affirmative action. This has to do with goals and intent that people are expressing to us as a city and our proprietary departments when it comes to that diversity on these contracts. So I wanted to bring it to the attention of all of my colleagues and those of you who are listening and watching. We're going to be much more diligent about following through with that, not waiting until after the fact for these organizations to tell us that, oops, we didn't find anybody to do business with, or we just didn't follow through. Thank you.
Ms. Miskowski.
Thank you, Mr. President. And again, I think you can just get a little bit of an undercurrent there of what I've been dealing with, not as relates to what Mr. Cardenas said, but earlier. And the answer, and I appreciate Mr. Carlisle Hall saying, if that's what the city attorney says, then I'll do it. I mean, that has been the city attorney policy. That's been the city attorney policy for the 30 years I've been around here, that outside counsel to a city attorney or a city attorney would get a call from an agent of the city and say, what's up, what's the status, what's going on, and it would come. The Department, Board of Airports, the Board of Airports Commission, and or the activity of the people that they work with there who are consultants, particularly in this case, which is a city attorney contract, that is not changing policy, that is not any change of course. It has always been the case. It is clear that it needs to be the case, and you know, if necessary, as I said, when I talked to the city attorney made it abundantly clear to me, and in our room was Patty Tubert, who oversees this entity, and the city attorney who oversees the airport, at the airport. But I still don't like hearing saying, you know, if that's what I'm told to do, I'll do it, or if that's what the case is, I'll do it. That is the case. I don't think there's a city attorney here, and if possible, we could call him down here to underscore it. It is the rule, it is the policy, not changed, not any different from what the city has been and the city attorney's role in this city has been for the last 30 years that I've been around here, and I just want to make that clear. It's not a change in course, perhaps a change in attitude, but it needs to be underscored clearly, abundantly, absolutely. That is the case.
Thank you, Ms. Misikowski. Other members wishing to be heard on this item? If not, let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Item number 10, called special by Councilmember Hahn.
Ms. Hahn, item number 10.
Thank you. And I also think there's somebody in the audience that wants to speak on this. And I will just say, colleagues, just to let you know what I'm doing here, if you're interested. This is, again, in my community of Wilmington. And this is my ongoing effort to rid the community of Wilmington of those storage containers, those empty storage containers that really blight that community in a way that I think almost nothing else does. We've come up with what we think is a solution, which is to urge the Port of Los Angeles to create, for lack of a better word, what we're calling a container land, where sort of in far east Wilmington, where we relax the standards that we have currently with building and safety. So maybe we are not as strict about the landscaping, maybe we relax the height and the setback, so that we give an incentive to these storage container facilities that there's a reason for them to move out of a legitimate business, which is the storing of these containers, into an area that will be a little more relaxed in terms of the standards, because it won't be in a residential neighborhood. So the reason I called it special was that I wanted to add just a verbal piece of language that we add the area east of Alameda for relaxation of standards, because it did not refer to that area in the ordinance that the city attorney is drafting. So we're trying to come up with a creative way to rid Wilmington of storage containers while allowing for a legitimate business to happen in a non-residential area, and perhaps relax some of the standards that we apply when it's in a residential area. So appreciate your support on this, and I know Pat Wilson's come from Wilmington to speak on this.
Is that a motion to reopen the public hearing?
Yes, it is. Can I have a second?
Second. All right, without objection. Mr. Wilson, please come forward.
Mr. President, members of the council, my name is Patrick Wilson. I'm president of Fast Lane Transportation, also a member of the Wilmington Chamber of Commerce and the Wilmington Neighborhood Council, although I'm not speaking for the Neighborhood Council this morning. I'd like to thank Councilwoman Hahn for her dogged pursuit for the solution and the relief of the mixing of containers, the storage of containers in the residential area of Wilmington, both through the interim control ordinance that was enacted recently, which prohibits the issuance of new permits for outdoor storage, and also with this modification or motion to modify the city ordinance by allowing for more relaxed standards with the in regard to the setback, the landscaping, and landscaping for the storage of containers. This would greatly induce those operators that are currently in the residential area of Wilmington to move into an area that's more conducive to that type of an operation that is an industrial area and would not have an impact on the residents. So I support the motion as amended. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there members wishing to be heard on this item? If not, Ms. Hahn.
I really want to thank Building and Safety, and for particularly Dave Keim, our senior guy there, and the work that you are doing. This has been a monumental task to go in and begin citing those who right now are illegal, working with them to kind of come to this solution so we don't put legitimate people out of business. And it's really been a Herculean task, and I really want to thank Building and Safety for working with me, working with the business owners, and to find that we can ultimately have a solution that really works for everyone in the city of Los Angeles. So I really want to thank them for all their many, many, many hours on this, this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. Thank you, Building and Safety. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Item number 26, call special by Councilmember Garcetti.
Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you. I called this special just to say a thank you. This is Street Vacation that is helping assist St. Anne's, which I think many of us know. It's a great center, home for teenage mothers and also girls who are runaways or who have been thrown out of their homes. Really, that it helps uplift and turn around the lives of these many times mothers and other individuals. They have a facility in my district in CD13, and they're looking at having some housing that would go there, transitional housing. It's a wonderful project, but so often, as we know, when great projects meet city bureaucracy, it's a difficult thing for all of us to navigate through. And I want to thank the Bureau of Engineering because they have been incredible with this. And I want to thank them for moving on the Street Vacation, for being such a great educational partner to St. Anne's, and to just allowing this project, which will inspire so many people to turn their lives around, so many girls who find their lives often in difficult situations, to really have an opportunity at a new life. And when we do these procedures, sometimes we forget the human beings that are behind them, but Bureau of Engineering never does, and you certainly didn't with this, and I just wanted to give you my personal thanks. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Garcetti. Other members wishing to be heard? If not, Madam Clerk, please open the roll on item 26. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Item number 27, call special for cards from the public, and also Mr. Weiss called that special.
Okay, let's
Have 39 forthwith.
forthwith on 39, please. Mr. Weiss, did you wish to be heard first, or should we go directly to speaker cards? Okay, going to speaker cards. If I can ask the clerk to put up a 10-minute clock for a public hearing on item 27, and I'll call the following members of the public forward. If you would form a line behind the podium, we'd certainly appreciate it. Dr. James Moore, Julie Onuye, Chandler Rubatum, Bethany Leal, and Esperanza Martinez. Please come forward and form a line at the podium. This is your opportunity to be heard.
Ladies and gentlemen of the City Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak before you today. I'm Dr. James Moore. I'm president of the Villa Marina Council, which is a homeowners association adjacent to the Daniel Freeman Marina Hospital. I also serve on the governing board of that hospital. On May 29, 2002, Tenet Healthcare first announced their intention to close the hospital. They immediately began the shutdown. They terminated some services, moved patients, transferred personnel, chose not to repair some equipment, and removed some others to other hospitals. The hospital degraded precipitously. It would have been shut down for simply failing to meet minimum standards were it not for a court injunction requiring Tenet to restore services, equipment, and staffing to maintain standards. In the face of Tenet's recent divestiture announcement, we risk the scenario of this happening again. It's imperative it not be permitted. I urge you to bring to bear whatever influence and pressure you can to ensure the continued, undegraded life-saving services at Daniel Freeman Marina Hospital and its emergency room until a suitable new ownership is found and through the transition. I believe this new ownership will emerge from the local community. Thank you for your attention and action in this vital matter.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good morning. My name is Julie Inoue. I'm the founder of Save Our Marina Hospital and the executive director of We Care, Community Action for Healthcare Reform and Education. We'd like to thank the City Council for helping us before to save our hospital and making history within our nation. Our hospital and ER are the closest to LAX, the #1 terrorist target for the state of California. From our sister organization of We Care, we were contacted and began assisting other communities across the nation. who are also being inundated by healthcare closures or under attack for sales of their nonprofit hospitals to for-profit corporations. We Care also created a board of directors who are healthcare executives. We began overseeing Tenet's management and following OSHPD's quarterly financial reports on our Daniel Freeman Marina Hospital. We've now begun implementation of Phase 2 with our dual role to acquire the hospital when Tenet abandons us as we had anticipated. We are here asking for your support once again, since We Care, a pending 501c3 nonprofit, is interested in acquiring this hospital. We look forward to working with you again and making history. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Honorable Council members, my name is Chandler Brewbottom and I am 11 years old. In the year 2020, I will be 27 and the city of Los Angeles will have an additional 6 million more people. Our city will need 55% more acute care beds than we have existing now. The cost of hospitals will be in the hundreds of millions based on today's cost of over $1 million per hospital bed. Who is looking out for my generation and who is planning ahead for the future? I urge you, on behalf of my generation and all of us, to think ahead and help save the 17 hospitals in Los Angeles that are now being sold or closed by Tenet. This is a matter of life and death. Thank you.
Hard to follow that. Hello, council members. My name is Esperanza Martinez, and I'm here representing members of the Silver Lake Hollywood Echo Park Metropolitan Alliance, which is part of the broader Los Angeles Metropolitan Alliance. We are poor and working class people across the city of Los Angeles, committed to the fight to protect access to quality health care and jobs. Our members were also at the forefront of winning the landmark Healthcare Careers Ladder Training Program. The closure of 14 hospitals across the county of Los Angeles in the light of a dwindling public healthcare system will only devastate the already crowded emergency rooms. Over 8,000 people in Silver Lake, Hollywood, and Echo Park live in poverty. 1 out of 4 are uninsured. The proposed sale and potential closure of Queen of Angels Hospital means higher unemployment and less medical attention. That will only deepen the epidemic of poverty. We want to recognize Cindy Miskakowski and Mr. Weiss for putting forth the resolution to hold Tenet corporations accountable, to stabilize the sale of these hospitals, because I don't have to tell you that there is a huge need to keep these hospitals open, because the need for health care will not end. Tenet Healthcare cannot be trusted. A public process is needed to incorporate public opinion and healthcare advocates that know the need in our communities. To close, we believe that quality healthcare and public transportation is a right for all and should not be determined by a dollar value. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bethany Leal. I'm with the California Women's Law Center. We're part of a long-standing healthcare coalition, along with the other speakers who just spoke, that aids and informs elected officials as to the community healthcare needs when nonprofit hospitals are sold. The role the California Women's Law Center plays specifically is to ensure reproductive healthcare services are maintained at a hospital regardless of its religious affiliation. I'm here today to urge you to pass this motion and to speak specifically about the public oversight process, and to urge the council members to take advantage of our long-standing coalition that has an enormous amount of experience in the community with issues concerning health care and with hospital transactions. We have critical mass, as you all know. We have a health care crisis. We have 17 hospitals that are being sold. So I really call on you to take the political authority to pressure Tenet to cooperate with the community, with elected officials, to ensure that access to health care doesn't disappear if all these hospitals close. So please pass this motion, and please work with, in combination with Tenet and with the community, an apparatus that exists and that has a lot of experience and wants to help ensure that we don't lose these hospitals. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to call on Ms. Miskowski now.
Thank you, Mr. President. I put this forward with Mr. Weiss, and I know that there are a number of other council members who are concerned because we each may be affected by hospitals either in our districts or in the vicinity of our districts where these services are being provided. And as you've heard from the broad areas covered by the people who testified today, there are serious concerns that we all have. And I know I have met with now 2 different groups who are interested in approaching Tenet and saying as Tenet might close down these hospitals or might be putting these, has indicated these hospitals are for sale, that they want to approach Tenet because they want, in keeping the community's interest at stake and keeping the opportunity of the hospitals running, the emergency rooms providing the services, there are interested groups. And so on the one hand, I don't want to do anything to inhibit the sale along that course. I got a call yesterday from the executive director of Tenet of one of the hospitals closest in my district, that is the Freeman, Daniel Freeman Marina Hospital. And he indicated that that is Tenet's commitment, that is what they want to do. And so I think the motion attempts to help facilitate that. We have actually had a meeting with the mayor's business team to say what can the mayor's business team do to help achieve the goals that at least Tenet in its press release said it wanted to do, and that is to sell to other hospital entities. But I'm not so sure that that goes far enough. We need to make sure in our role as sort of a government watchdog to make sure that some of the things as it relates to health care in our region are maintained. We need to have something more than just good faith assurance. We need to have ongoing status reports. We need to let our communities know and the hospitals know that we want to be there to work with them. What we don't want is to be there to work with them and indicate that if these properties are to be sold for their real estate value or something else, that going to the highest bidder for real estate is something that we would look friendly upon in terms of looking at whether it's plan changes or zone changes or the like. So I think that we are really inviting not only the community organizations and those who are interested in participating as future buyers, but also Tenet itself to be willing to extend its hand and work with us and community groups to help achieve the end that seems to be all of our goals as stated, which is to ensure that these hospitals be transferred through sale to entities that will run them and continue to provide these vital health services, particularly when you look at this many up for sale at one time. One can't but be concerned about the specter that future closures may be in the offing, changes may be in the offing, and as we say, with the extremely delicate nature of our health network throughout the region, we, the public, can't afford to have that network further disrupted, further seriously damaged by taking vital services out of that network. So that's what this motion is intended to do. I think it's positive, and I ask the council to support it.
Thank you, Ms. Miskowski. Mr. Weiss, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is, we have all these problems in Los Angeles, right? We had the MTA strike, we have the grocery workers strike. This is something which is just as deep and just as powerful, and it's still lurking beneath the surface there, and people aren't focusing on it, and people aren't talking about it. And if this is, it's life or death, it's certainly well-being and health, as you and this wonderful 11-year-old girl presented it. But it's the difference between life and death for so many people. Because if you call 911 to get an ambulance, and that ambulance is busy dropping off someone who they ordinarily would have dropped off at a Tenet location, but the Tenet location is shut down or it's out of commission for a while, and that ambulance has to drive 10 or 15 minutes farther to get rid of its patient, because they're not going to become available until they get rid of that first patient. That's 10 or 15 minutes, or it's half-hour round trip more that you're waiting for that emergency medical care at your residence. It's something that affects everybody. If you get into a traffic accident in a part of town which previously had been served by Tenet, and Tenet isn't there anymore, your life is on the line. And that's why Ms. Miskowski and I brought this in. It's something which, if you don't have one of these Tenet-related hospitals in your district, you're fortunate, but you got to have one pretty close by. I have a couple. I've got Encino Tarzana which has multiple locations, and I've got Century City in my district. Now, on Century City, the fact of the matter is that there is a company that is out there that is ready, willing, and able to move in and take over operation of that hospital. And the word I've been getting lately is that they're cautiously optimistic that Tenet is going to cooperate in that transfer. I want this motion today to serve as further encouragement to Tenet to cooperate, because if you let your accreditation lapse for a certain period of time, under certain circumstances, the state can make you go back to the drawing board and get your accreditation, so you could have people out of service for potentially a year. Who knows? And that's a very serious matter. I think it's entirely appropriate that this council speak up on this crisis before it happens, because if these Tenet facilities get shut down or they get closed down or no one buys them or the sales aren't approved, the healthcare safety net in this county is already burst, and it will be overflowing and flooded if Tenet doesn't act responsibly to ensure an orderly transfer. Thank you, Mr. President Tom LaBonge.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Mr. Smith, please.
I'm not going to vote against it, so don't worry. Let's have a look. I just want to commend you for bringing this forward, first of all, because it is a problem, but it's a bigger problem than this, and I think we need another motion beyond this. The problem is not just Tenet. We lost in my district Granada Hills Community Hospital in October, which was close to bankruptcy. Assemblyman Keith Richmond, who is a doctor, for one, and former health administrator of a HMO, tells me that 85% of the hospitals in California are operating in the red right now. We're on the verge of what could be a tremendous health crisis in Los Angeles if we lose more than just Tenet and Granada Hills. Right now, with Granada Hills closed, the emergency rooms at Northridge Hospital and at Holy Cross are closed an additional 3 to 5 hours a day because of the load that they're carrying from Granada Hills being closed. If we lose Tarzana Hospital on top of Granada Hills Hospital, we could be down to facing the fact that many of our hospitals will be closed virtually 20 hours a day because of the load, and sending people many, not just 5 or 10, 15 minutes, but a half an hour away into Pasadena and over the hill into UCLA. These are concerns that we've got to address, and so I would hope that from this, we will approve this today, but I think we need a second motion, Mr. Weiss, that says let's take a look at the entire health impact of all the hospitals in the city of LA and get the county health department over here to tell us what, in fact, is the status of all those hospitals, because we are facing a critical healthcare crisis if anything more than Tenet go down and Granada Hills go down. So thanks for bringing this forward, and I hope we'll bring that additional motion forward, too.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much, Mr. LaBonge, and I want to thank folks that were here testifying, and Chandler, I think you're ready for an internship if you want one at any of our offices, but give me a call if you're serious about it. I'd be happy to have you come here in City Hall and give those speeches frequently. I also, and I appreciate too the local leaders that are here because of Queen of Angels Hollywood Presbyterian. I know worked very closely with the staff and the nurses, especially during the strike over Tenet, and we have to do all that we can to keep these hospitals open. So I want to thank Cindy Misikowski and Jack Weiss and Dennis Zine for his second as well in bringing this forward. And we have to work with the state to make sure that these regulations, even if Tenet were to sell, it's the same problem that would be faced by whoever comes next. And we have to figure out a way where healthcare comes first, where access comes first, and then we figure out adherence to building codes, to structural safety, et cetera, second. And I also want to just say to all the folks that are in the Hollywood area, we will work very, very hard to make sure that hospital stays open in one form or another. Children's Hospital is right there, and Kaiser as well. So there is a continuum of care and a cluster of healthcare that's not only important for healthcare, but important for jobs. And I know Metropolitan Alliance and other folks that are in the community have helped create a new job training program, Healthcare Career Ladders, in which we're training local people to fill those jobs there. And if that hospital were to go under for any reason or have nobody administering it, it would be a real loss for the economy as well. So there are a number of good reasons we not only have to do this, but we must. And I appreciate the testimony today and fully support this.
Thank you, Mr. Garcetti. Council President Padilla.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, I wanted to sort of step down today and speak on this item First of all, in support, thank Ms. Miskowski for bringing it to our attention, but also put it into a little bit of a context, because over the weekend I sort of stepped away and thought about this issue, and it seems that there's yet another perfect storm brewing when it comes to health care in Los Angeles. Some of the speakers spoke very articulately about hospital closures, emergency room closures in the past. You overlay that with the ever-declining level of people with health care coverage. And if we take Los Angeles today in a snapshot, we hear the news about Tenet and their plans for the Los Angeles market. That's only taking steps backwards when it comes to people having access to much-needed care. We look at our budget situations on the public side. This is much more a county concern than a city concern, but Angelenos are affected, which is why we're hearing it today. And services being cut, maybe even another round of facility threats when it comes to L.A. County. And certainly in one of the most impacted neighborhoods of Los Angeles, we have the King Drew Medical Center and the future of that being called into question. And so when you put all these pieces together, this is a very tumultuous time when it comes to the Los Angeles region, and in particular the city of Los Angeles, the people of Los Angeles, when it comes to our health care infrastructure. And so for those people who may be wondering why the city of Los Angeles is deliberating this today, because this may be more of a county concern, we need to say no. This is our concern because it affects the people of Los Angeles, and it's not just a district concern for this 11th Council District. This is a citywide, a regional concern, and I'm glad we're acting on this resolution today. But colleagues, this issue is much greater than just the 11th District. It's much greater than just about Tenet. We're all going to feel the impacts of some of these changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Padilla. Mr. Ludlow.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to also rise in support of this and thank Council members Miskowski and Jack Weiss and Dennis Zine. One of these hospitals is in my district. That's Midway Hospital. I think this motion is important because I think it's essential that we do everything we can to make sure there's no interruption in services, no interruptions in programs, and definitely to try to make sure that we could do anything possible to ensure that the men and women who are working at those facilities don't lose their jobs. Councilmember Smith said it best. We could be facing a greater public health crisis here in Los Angeles, or a health care crisis, and I think this motion is a responsible step to try to avert or slow the hemorrhaging down, no pun intended. But thank you, council members, for bringing this forward, and I rise in full support.
Mr. Villaraigosa.
Members, the idea that this would not be a city issue couldn't be further from the truth. This city has more uninsured people than any big city in the nation, and in fact we rival any place in the Western industrialized world. I repeat, we rival any big city in the Western industrialized world in the number of people that don't have health care. We know that there's a strike going on among the supermarkets, and the big issue there is the issue of health benefits. We know that just last year, the county attempted to cut some of their hospitals, including Rancho Los Amigos. So the idea that we would not speak in unison today about protecting the public health with respect to the issue related to the sale of these tenant hospitals just couldn't be further from the idea that this is city business. This is about the life blood of this city. It's about what we do to protect the safety net. It's about what we do to make sure that children and people who need the hospital system are going to be able to go to it, that we have the trauma system that we need, because we know that many of these hospitals provide trauma care as well. So I thank Councilmember Miskowski, Weiss, and Zine for bringing this matter forward, and I urge your aye vote.
Mr. Cardenas.
One of the things that is actually causing a lot of consternation in the healthcare field right now is that the state of California has a mandate on all hospital facilities to retrofit according to the earthquake requirements of the state of California. So When you look at it, I'll give you an example. There's a Kaiser facility in my district. They're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to retrofit, and they're going to take the opportunity to actually modernize their facility as well. I'm very proud of the decision that they've made, yet at the same time, they're a not-for-profit. Maybe they're working on a different scale as Tenet and others are. The fact of the matter is, I agree with you 110%, Greg Smith. We need to look into this further, and I think that maybe what you and I can do is work on possibly even having a hearing on a future date on this issue, looking at the comprehensive issue of healthcare within the city of Los Angeles, because it's not just Tenet, it's not just Kaiser. Every single facility, hospital in California is having to reevaluate, can we sustain our facility, or by 2008, are we just going to have to sell or close our doors? The problem with them selling, as Councilman Garcetti pointed out just a few minutes ago, whoever buys these hospitals, they're still going to have to retrofit. So the bottom line is, you know, it's just like somebody saying, I'm going to buy a car off of you, but I have to invest X amount of dollars in that vehicle. If not, I'm going to have to keep it parked in my driveway and not be able to use it. Not too many people are going to buy that vehicle from you if they know that down the road, they're not going to be able to use that vehicle. Same thing with hospitals. The young lady just mentioned, what are we doing? What is going on? What is her future going to be like if she ever has the need for a hospital? Is it going to be the way I was as a child here in the San Fernando Valley in the 1960s and 70s when I was your age? What's going to be the case 10 and 20 years down the road? Fact of the matter is, what's going to be the case after 2008? How many hospitals are going to say, I'm sorry, I have to close my doors because we don't have the tens of millions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars in many cases to actually retrofit it? And then there's another problem. How do they pass that on to the consumer? How do they bond against that? How do they go about making sure that they can keep their doors open and actually meet the requirement of investing hundreds of millions of dollars, not in healthcare, not in better and good doctors, not in educating their nurses, just hundreds of millions of dollars just to fix the bricks and mortar of their facility so they can provide that service? It's a fundamental problem, and every hospital that I talk to, whether it's Tenet or Kaiser or Holy Cross, etc., they're all having big, major problems. The feds haven't responded with any support. The state of California has not figured out some type of bonding assistance when it comes to making sure our hospitals stay open. We are in a looming crisis. It's bad enough as it is. Come 2008, if something doesn't happen drastically, we're going to be in a whole boatload of trouble. And young lady, you're absolutely right. You're going to be in big trouble. Sorry about that.
Mr. Zine.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to join all of my colleagues in supporting this. The issue that is at hand is the public safety, human needs. When we look at our LA City Fire Paramedic Service, when they go to an emergency room and have to wait sometimes hours to get a bed for a patient, that prevents paramedic service from people who need it. When we look at the number of trauma centers in this area that have closed up over the past few years, that those trauma centers, they were clamoring at one time to be level 1 trauma centers. They no longer want to do that. And we've seen the decline. I know in my district, in the West San Fernando Valley, we only have a couple hospitals left to serve millions of people. And throughout the city of Los Angeles, we see those numbers declining. And if the 19 hospitals that Tenet owns were to close, we will be in a crisis stage. I understand the needs for the hospital industry and the retrofit. And unfortunately, we have mandates imposed on us by the state of California, by the federal government, and those mandates don't come with money. They just mandate it be done, and you do it, and you find the money to make it happen. Councilman Cardenas mentioned bonds. Maybe that's a measure that can be used to help save this for the people of the city of Los Angeles. We've got to come up with some solution, and as the numbers of hospitals continue to dwindle away, and I can look at the southwest San Fernando Valley, where we have West Hills Hospital, we have Northridge Hospital, which I share with the council member Greg Smith, and we have a Kaiser Hospital. We have Tarzana and Encino. That serves the entire southwest San Fernando Valley. We don't have sufficient hospitals, and as far as the level 1 trauma centers, those have evaporated. I think we've got a couple of those left in the city of Los Angeles. So we are at a crisis stage. We need to make sure that they stay open, that they serve the needs of the people, and I support all of my colleagues in this endeavor and ask that the tenant corporation that owns these think about the people who are going to be impacted. And the little girl who spoke, the generations that are going to follow, we need to have a civilized society with proper medical care for those in need, from the little children to our senior citizens here in the city of Los Angeles. So I recommend that I vote on this along with everyone else. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Labange.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to cap a couple things. I think it's so important, Ms. Misikowski and Mr. Weiss and Mr. Zine, that you spoke about this, because years and years ago, the city did run hospitals. Anybody here ever visit a city hospital? I should. Central Receiving, Hollywood Receiving, Georgia Street, all over. And then in our own City Hall South was the city's health department building. You could still see the plaque as you went into the wall. And then as we gave it to the county in an economy size, just like we're looking now at some of the consolidations, we put over that responsibility to the County of Los Angeles for emergency facilities, because the receiving hospitals were emergency facilities at the time. But this now is an absolute emergency, and I think this gives us a starting point. And as Mr. Cardenas spoke of in Sacramento, the concerns, many, many state representatives are very concerned about this issue as it relates to it. I know in the district that I share with Mr. Garcetti, the work that's being done at Kaiser, but also Queen of Angels is on this list, and also Children's Hospital is constantly challenged. Mr. Zine mentioned all the hospitals in the San Fernando Valley. Often a helicopter flies over Silver Lake on its approach to Children's Hospital, and it's a child from the San Fernando Valley, because the only place to get immediate trauma treatment at Children's Hospital Los Angeles. So I just wanted to thank my colleagues. I just wanted to give a little historic perspective, because I think sometimes it's always good to know a great history of what has transpired over the years as it relates to health care, and now where we are now, the constant challenge of keeping emergency hospitals and hospitals open, period. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Weiss.
One thing I would just suggest, and I'd had some discussions about this before with some folks outside this room, but hearing the tremendous interest that people in this room have in these healthcare issues, is I would suggest we invite Jonathan Fielding, who is the director of the county public health department, to council chambers one day to give us a briefing on status of health in the city of Los Angeles and the status of the healthcare system, because it's clearly something that people here care an awful lot about. And what I would like to do is, with the concurrence of the members of the council, suggest that we invite Dr. Fielding into the council for a briefing. We'll schedule with the office of the council president at some convenient time.
Absolutely. I'd love to work with you on that. Mr. Labange?
Add to that, I think that's a great idea, Jack. I think what would be great if we had a joint meeting with the Board of Supervisors, because they're the actual ones who make a decision on health care. And if we had a joint meeting with the Board of Supervisors, and I don't think it would be a bad thing to do it annually.
Mr. Labange, I'll call Dr. Fielding, you call the supervisors, okay?
All right, Jack. No, I wanted to make a friendly amendment to that same request to the President, because I think it's important to see that. Because I think when I went back and talked about the history of when the city gave up our hospitals, there was a proposal that we would be taken care of with our needs for hospitals, and we see how it's transpired. Pasadena and Long Beach still have their own health departments, and I would like to also investigate how those other cities operate on that. So I would just want to suggest that we have a joint meeting on health care issues with the Board of Supervisors at some time in the future to follow up Mr. Weiss's briefing from the department, General Manager of the County Health Department of Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Colleagues, I'll contact the chairman of the Board of Supervisors, and we'll see what they say. On the resolution before us, Madam Clerk, please open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Do you wish to clear the desk before going into closed session?
Let's do housekeeping.
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Motion shall be posted and referred.
There's an excuse on the desk. Councilmember Perry requests to be excused Wednesday, February 11th, to leave at 11:30 for city business that meets council policy.
Excuse is granted.
And there is a card on the closed session item number 46.
And before even getting to public comment on closed session matters, we held a public comment period today. There were no cards at the time. We do have now a request from Gracie Gray to address the council under general public comment. If Ms. Gray is still here, please come forward at this time.
Good afternoon. There's many of you here that I never met. My name is Gracie Gray, is the married name. I've been down here for quite a few years, and many of times I walked away without anything being resolved. Today I'm here because I'm 70 years of age. I try my best to do things that is right before God, because he's God of order, not of disorder. I have a car, and the car is a 1979 car. And the reason I was driving this 79 car is because I work for the city school, the county, the state parks, FDA, but I'm not receiving my Social Security because a Latino female is using the same Social Security number. So I hardly have anything to live off of. So I parked my car in front of the door. And Friday, when I left at 1 or 2 o'clock to go and get a sticker, it was there. When I came back, the car was gone. But I'm saying that to say this. There is a business there, and it's a place that repair cars. I don't have a parking place because the landlord gave it to a Latino guy just moved in. I've been there for 4 years. I don't have a parking place. But nevertheless, this guy parked all of his cars on the street when they, to get repaired. He take them out of the garage. And Tuesdays, you're not allowed to park on the right-hand side. So here I am. Sometimes I have to push the car, and sometimes I have to drive the car. I need a car, sir. And that's the reason I came before you all, because I really need a car. And I remember Mr. Parks when he was the chief of police. I also got hit by a Latino, and he's had to send me a police report. Do you know I haven't got no money?
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanksgiving, I didn't have nothing. Christmas, I didn't have nothing. Mother's Day, I didn't have anything. Anniversary, I never received an anniversary card, but I'm getting ready to go into Washington, D.C. so they can get the next statement out about the illegal alien Jamaican, because he haven't gave me nothing.
Thank you,
But I would like for you to look into this and see about my car, because I need a ride to go to the church.
Thank you, ma'am. This concludes public comment for today's meeting. General public comment, that is. We do have some speaker cards on the closed session item. Let us call upon Rabbi Reuben Edward O'Carroll and Michael Rosenberg. Do you wish to be heard in our closed session matter? No? Yes?
We've changed our mind, and we don't want to address the council at this time. Thank you anyway.
Thank you very much for being here. And if there's nothing further, then in conformance with California law, the council will now adjourn into closed session. Sergeants, please clear the chambers. Next matter before us, please.
That clears the desk, Mr. President.
Colleagues, this is the end of our agenda for today. Do we have any announcements? Announcements? Mr. Ludlow?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to acknowledge and thank all the council members that were there in Sacramento yesterday to see the 66 speakers sworn in, and particularly Councilmember Villaraigosa and Councilmember Cardenas for showing us how to get around Sacramento. It's really great to have you all on the council. And Councilmember Padilla organized an event, a little get-together with as many of us as could make it, with the speaker and his new chief of staff. And it was great to see the team spirit between Arnold Schwarzenegger and Fabian Nunez. In fact, for those who didn't see it, Greg Smith will be pleased, Governor Schwarzenegger walked Fabian Nunez out of the chambers, and it just was a great, great moment. And the Republican members of the House spoke very, very highly of the bipartisan nature that they look to work in, and they also acknowledged the great role that they have in front of them to support cities. So it's great to hear that type of support coming from the members of the House, the members of the legislature. And so just thank you again to our council president and our two colleagues, Cardenas and Villaraigosa, for being such a good team up in Sacramento yesterday.
And to you too, Mr. Ludlow, you know your way around Sacramento yourself. But colleagues, I do want to thank those of you who were able to make it. Once again, the city had a strong showing in support of the newest speaker from Los Angeles. Councilmembers Cardenas, Hahn were there, Ludlow, Villaraigosa, Reyes, Gruhl, and myself, along with the mayor. So we had a great showing yesterday and the evening before, and we were joined by friends of the city, including Bill Fujioka, Tyrone Freeman from SEIU, and a handful of others. So colleagues, we should be very, very proud that the leadership string in the Assembly continues to be from Los Angeles, beginning with former Speaker and now our colleague, Antonio Villaraigosa, to Bob Hertzberg, to Herb Wesson, and now Fabian Nunez. So we have some folks looking out for us in Sacramento. Other announcements? Other announcements? Mr. Lavange.
Mr. Smith, you remember 1971, February 9th, 6:01 a.m. The earthquake was yesterday in Sylmar, California, which I thought was of note to recognize that part of our history. But also, as I look at Sidney Misakowski and Janice Hahn, it was 40 years ago yesterday that on Sunday night, everybody watched Ed Sullivan. And there were the Beatles, and they sang great songs of a great time. So it's good to look at history.
Oh, and that hair of theirs.
On the hair in their suits. Anyway, thank you for letting me use this microphone every day we meet.
We're going to get you a golden one of these days.
Do we have a lot of say in that?
Mr. Cardenas.
Make sure if you get them a golden mic, it doesn't rub off, because it will be used. An announcement, another reminder, the blood drive at the Mission Hospital on Roscoe between Van Nuys and Sepulveda. Please make your way there. They'll be taking blood till 4 o'clock. We always have to remember we need to keep our blood banks full, and we certainly don't need to wait for an emergency to go out there and donate some blood. So thank you to the people who are participating, and thank you to those of you who forgot about it and are going to get off your couch right now, run over there and give some blood. Thank you.
And if you can't make this drive, you can always call 1-800-GIVE-LIFE and schedule an appointment with the nearest Red Cross. Other announcements? An announcement, Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to announce a fun event in the 8th District that Irvin Magic Johnson is going to open the doors of the Magic Johnson Theater, excuse me, located at the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Plaza, and televised nationally the live broadcast for the TNT NBA tip-off. Also, they'll have their halftime show while they have at least 2 NBA games will be televised from that location. And so they will, this will be the opening of the NBA All-Star Week in Los Angeles, which will bring together a variety of activities through Sunday within the city of Los Angeles. And so we'll have Charles Barkley and also Kenny Smith and our local radio personality, Steve Harvey, will be at the Magic Johnson Theater until 10 p.m. To provide the color commentation for the TNT show.
Final announcements. For members, residents of the Mission Hills community, the Mission Hills Neighborhood Council is meeting this evening from 7 to 9 p.m. at San Jose Elementary School, the Mission Hills Neighborhood Council. And if there's no further announcements, this would be the time for adjourning tributes. Mr. Cardenas.
With great regret, I announced the passing of Rudolph Rudy Papillion. He passed away Saturday, February 7th, 2004. from an apparent heart attack on Saturday. Rudy Papillion returned home after an early morning jog to shower and ready himself for the day. Sometime later, his wife found him collapsed on the floor. His notable attributes are the fact that Rudy Papillion, 57, worked for 33 years as an Alley USD educator, starting out at Virginia Elementary School in Los Angeles. Then in 1994, he became a teacher at Fulton Middle School, then a counselor, and then the assistant principal, and finally in 1999 became the middle school's principal. He's survived by his wife of 32 years, Susan, 3 children, Alexis, Jeffrey, and Zachary, his mother, Juliana, and 2 sisters, Elizabeth and Julian.
Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, I ask that we adjourn today in memory of Richard Mo Montanez, who Mr. Labange and I joined in North Atwater Park in September, on September 27, 2003, to dedicate this ball field to a gentleman who had given himself for decades, quite literally, to the Atwater Village community in building up a Little League there, in bringing a lot of Latinos into the Little League who had not been a part of it, but who was really a community hero to all in Atwater Village. Mo was there with us, and it was tremendously moving to see literally everybody who's lived in Atwater Village and North Atwater Village for the last 4 or 5 decades knew Mo. And he was a real legend. He unfortunately was sick with cancer at the time and succumbed to his cancer. He passed away earlier last month, and we'll get the exact date, but he was a real friend and mentor to the youth of the community. He served in World War II and was a veteran, and he had retired from our own Department of Recreation and Parks here, and he had worked for many years at the Chevy Chase Rec Center in North Atwater Village. Though Mo is gone, certainly his memory lives on with so many folks in Atwater Village, and the field that bears his name will continue to inspire young people for generations to come.
Mr. Labange.
About Mo Montanez, what was a wonderful event is that, as Garrick said, so many people came back to celebrate it. And his drive, there was no Little League in the neighborhood at all, and they had to go to Glendale, which is the border city right next to it, but he wanted one for his neighborhood, and he also wanted the young people to have nice Little League uniforms and play, and he was very proud. And when you see the people come back over the years, it's really fitting. So it was very appropriate that this field bear his name, Mo Montanez, in North Atwater, right next to the Central Service Yard, for someone who was a great coach. And coaches are those who help inspire others, both young men and women, to do good things on a field of play and learn sportsmanship, and then be successful in other areas. So Mo Montanez deserves our great praise as we adjourn in his memory.
Other tributes? Ms. Perry.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to adjourn the memory of Percy Taylor, who was a loved and cherished member of our community. Last Wednesday, Mr. Taylor's life was brutally cut short by 3 criminals robbing a local market on 39th and Grand. During the course of the robbery, Mr. Taylor, who was an innocent bystander, stood by the side with his hands up in the air. He was senselessly shot in the face by one of the perpetrators for no apparent reason. These 3 individuals are still at large, but thanks to a surveillance tape and the help of some witnesses, LAPD is well on its way to bringing these individuals to justice. He was a 30-year employee of Los Angeles County and was known as a very kind and friendly man by his neighbors. He frequented the market where he was killed to buy lotto tickets, and in fact, he was known as the luckiest man in the neighborhood because several years ago he won $40,000 playing lotto at this local market. His photo was hanging in the store in celebration of this special moment. He was 72 at the time of his death and was just weeks away from his 73rd birthday. He is survived by one son and 1 daughter, and it makes me very sad today to have to adjourn in memory of such a fine individual and a member of our community who died under such heinous and extreme circumstances. And I would implore any and all people who are listening to this adjournment to call the Newton Police Station at 323-846-6547 with any information that you may have that would lead to the arrest of these individuals who senselessly killed this member of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perry. Mr. Zine.
Mr. President, request re-adjourn in memory of Morris Gear, passed away January 30th. Morris Murray Gear, born March 23rd, 1910 in New York City to Russian and Polish Jewish parents. After retiring, Murray's full and productive life continued as a volunteer ombudsman for various nursing homes. He also donated his time over the past 28 years as the insurance consultant and treasurer of the Independent Living Center of Southern California, which helps disabled people to become more independent and empower them to rejoin the community. He is survived by a devoted family, including his wife, Crystal, son, Leon, daughter-in-law, brother, Paul, sister-in-law, Dorothy, grandson, Ashman, grandson, Sean, stepson, Elliot, and many other friends and relatives. May Morris Murray Gear rest in peace.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Thank you all very much. This meeting is adjourned.